I'm Kevin Rinke, and I'd like to welcome you to Beyond the Echo. I ran for governor in Michigan. After losing that election, my desire to look at issues that are important to the state or the country grew. There is so much static. There are so many opinions. Our news stations have gotten to the point where we don't know what news is anymore. Where do you go to get real facts? This is about real perspective for you. Beyond the Echo will cut through all the smoke, all the opinions. It's not about Republicans. It's not about Democrats. It's about the issues and what are real. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Echo. I'm Kevin Rinke, and Beyond the Echo is a show that talks about issues that are important to people in Michigan, in America. It's not about purely politics, and I say that because having run for governor of Michigan and lost, I'm a citizen, and I demand from our political figures to understand what their positions are. Yep, I ran as a conservative and as a Republican, but you know what? In my life, I voted for Democrats when they were better candidates than what the Republican Party put up. And I think all Americans need to look and assess what their candidates stand for, what issues are important to them, and who can represent them the best. Again, being a conservative, it's safe to say that I haven't voted for Democrats very often. In fact, twice in my life. But today, I've got a great guest. I'm really, really excited. This gentleman is a first-generation immigrant. His parents legally immigrated to America from Europe, from Albania specifically, and he's a successful businessman. He's well-educated. He is now venturing into politics because he cares about our country and our state and has something to say. So with that, I'd like to welcome Nik Gjonaj, the Oakland County candidate for supervisor. And Nik, how are you this morning?
I'm great. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. Today, this is a conversation. It's not an interview. And I hope that you are willing to share a little bit about your history and your family's history. And we'll get into all the current event things as we go along. But please, if you would.
Well, my name is Nik Gjonaj, and I know the spelling is more intimidating than the actual pronunciation. But I'm a first-generation Albanian. My mom and dad came here in 1973, and I was born about a year after. And interesting experience. I kind of grew up through the dual lens of an immigrant's perspective and also my own perspective as an American, and it served me well. There were times that I didn't like it, but in hindsight, it served me very well.
Were your parents, when they came to America, English speaking?
No.
So you grew up in an environment where your friends, the kids on the street, predominantly were English speaking?
Oh yeah. It's funny because I didn't know how to speak English till I was 5, till I went into kindergarten in Detroit, and there I was introduced to a relative that showed me the ropes and taught me English in many ways. So and then my parents were learning English around the same time I was. So
what prompted your mom and dad to leave Albania in 1973?
For a better life. There was no life there. They were in what is now modern day Montenegro. The borders had shifted, in the prior, world wars.
So for those folks out there, part of Yugoslavia, correct?
It was a former part of Yugoslavia. Albania was always Albania, but the borders, northern Albania today now, a lot of those parts are Montenegro, and southern Albania, some parts of southern Albania are now Greece.
And both during the Cold War were Russian provinces?
During the World War I.
World War I.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and even beforehand. So
got it.
But they like everyone else, they wanted to look for a better life. It's a beautiful country, but it was a poor country, especially at that time. So where my grandpa and his kids, my other uncles, they went to Italy. My dad decided to go to Austria. He heard there was some opportunity there, so him and my mother went to Austria and stayed there for a while. And my mom, was thinking they're going to return back to the homeland and live a good life. But then my dad's brother called, from America and said, "Hey, the Catholic Church is having a program. You need to come to America." My dad was like, "Oh my God, I can come to America?"
So the religions in Albania
Mhm.
are Catholic and Muslim?
Catholic, Muslim, and Orthodox actually in southern Albania and in certain areas. So
And what was the country segregated politically by those religious groups, or was it pretty well interactive?
no, I'll tell you what. It was all. I mean, you have little pockets of here and there like anywhere else, but I'll tell you as a whole, we are a very inclusive, tolerant, society where we look at each other like brothers and sisters first, regardless of religion. So that's served our people well because so many times you see across the world where there are wedges and create civil wars. And thank God, we don't have any of that.
So your family comes to Detroit, and they settled in Detroit originally,
Yeah, in Detroit and Pole Town.
in Poletown,
Yeah.
and you learned to speak English at 5. What was it like growing up in Poletown? Was there a strong Albanian community? I've always thought of Poletown as being predominantly Polish when I was a child.
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
It was predominantly Polish. And then, we were the new arrivals, right? The Albanian community there from Montenegro and northern Albania. And, some people from Kosovo came as well. But you had those pockets and a large African American community. And then there were a lot of Albanians that moved into Hamtramck as well,
so you're a byproduct of Detroit Public Schools?
temporarily. Yeah,
Temporarily.
we ended up,
Explain.
well, we grew up there. And when General Motors came to town, they were buying, you know, people out of their homes. And that kind of was a springboard for my dad and many of our neighbors to take that money that they cashed us out on the homes for and move. And some people settled close by, but my dad ended up saying, let's go north. And we went to Sterling Heights. And then, I spent my formative years in Sterling Heights.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So, should I presume that your father worked for General Motors?
He worked for Chrysler,
Worked for
30
Chrysler?
plus years
On the line?
on the line.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit more about your life going through, again, Detroit, Sterling Heights, always being an immigrant within these communities, always being a new ethnic entity, based on the time frames that you're
Yeah.
speaking about.
Well, it's funny because, growing up, I mean, I had a great childhood, but at the same time, there were challenges as a minority, right? But nobody knew, what the hell Albanian was. Are you guys Middle Eastern? Are you Armenian? No, we're European. We're right there across from Italy, south of the former Yugoslavia, north of Greece. We're right in that, zone. And, there were frustrations with that, but there were challenges, you know, growing up that most, I think, immigrants went through, language barriers. And then, culturally, we didn't understand a lot of things in the American tradition. We were learning as we were going, right?
Sure.
But thankfully, our people were very inclined to assimilate and, to want to be a part of the society. And that's what served us very well.
Yeah, that's what has impressed me. Albanians, the Chaldean community, is their desire, their spirit of entrepreneurialism, their desire to learn and be well educated, to participate in their communities. You see churches, you see them participating in politics, you see them participating in private businesses. Talk a little bit about that transition from Albania to America and what motivates an immigrant in an immigrant family really to come to America. What's that dream?
I'll tell you, it's sheer hunger for the American dream, and they make it happen. I mean, you know, when my parents came here, you know, my dad was like, "Wow," was floored, just like with everything, with the roadways, the infrastructure, the rules, everything. Was all I have to do is work to my heart's content, follow the rules, pay my taxes, and I can have anything I want to have. I mean, so, he ran with it. He, very conservative, wanted to make sure that, we were taken care of, but he worked on the line, and he gave us also the opportunity. He put us in business. He saw his brothers opening restaurants and doing things. So he would tell my mom, all right, leave the job. She worked at a plastics factory and said, all right, we're opening a restaurant, and would throw us in there, and, we'd figure it out, but it's the sheer will.
So as kids, you worked in the family businesses.
Oh yeah,
And again, not knowing Nick, this is an opportunity. Your family had restaurants.
they did.
What types of restaurants did they have?
Coney Islands, family dining, and then as we got older, we ventured, as we became more sophisticated, right? We ventured into fine dining and sports bars and different concepts,
All
throughout
in Michigan.
all Michigan. I did have I ventured out in Dallas. I did have a business in Dallas at one point, but all in Michigan.
Okay. And currently you're still involved in food and beverage?
Oh no, I got out years ago. I actually switched gears. Perfect storm happened. You go through ups and downs in life, and it was a challenging time. But I switched gears, and I had a good friend of mine, Mike Cardella, at the time, telling me, "Why don't you consider the insurance industry?" And I told him, "You're out of your mind. There's no way. I don't think I could do it." But then, when life events happened, I started thinking about it. My wife pushed me to consider it more, and I did, and I'm glad I did, because I enjoy a nice property and casualty career, in the insurance world. So
Yeah, congratulations.
thank you.
So Sterling Heights, public or private schools?
Public.
Public schools.
hmm
Did you go to college?
I did.
Where at?
I went to Macomb. I bounced around a lot. So I went to Macomb. I went to Wayne State. And then I was going to join the military at one point. I was kind of at a crossroads, and I was thinking about it. But then I had a good friend of mine out west, and he said, "Well, why don't you come out here?" And I did,
Where out west?
out in Southern California. So sunny California. So I ended up taking some classes and did some education over there at LA Pierce College in Woodland Hills, and took some courses at UCLA. And,
What year was that in, Nick?
oh gosh, it was the early 2000s,
Early 2000s. So past the Beach Boys.
past the Beach Boys.
I'm aging myself a little bit. California girls,
Yeah.
I always wanted to look like Brian Wilson. That's why I had hair down to my shoulders, because I thought that. No, was it Brian, or what was his brother's name?
I don't know.
The drummer. No, it was Brian. Dennis Wilson was the lead singer. Yeah, nobody in the room's as old as I am, but I'm well preserved, I think. So.
Yes, you are.
So you went to California, Woodland Hills. It's a great area.
Yeah.
You got a degree in.
I minored actually in film. My major was in political science, but then, as fate would have it, I had to return and help the folks with the family business. So I put school on hold,
Got it. Okay.
and then,
Weren't there two waves, significant waves of immigration from Albania? One in the 70s, and then during the mid 80s or late 80s,
early 90s.
early 90s.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's when Milosevic,
Well,
there was a war going on.
Well, there was I would say three waves in many ways. So in the early 90s, the brutal regime of Enver Hoxha, the communist regime, fell apart after he died. So I mean,
Someone help him die, or did he die of natural
I don't know.
causes?
Just personally, I'm glad he did, but but I'll tell you that that was just boom, changed Albania overnight. As with any society that goes through that, there were power vacuums and you know chaos and anarchy for a minute, but they coalesced, they got together, and I mean, in the short time from the early 90s till now, I mean, Albania has transformed, and it's a vibrant capitalistic. It's got socialist undertones still,
Sure.
because of the region, but I mean, it's night and day.
I was there last year, Croatia, Albania, and what is it, Monrovia?
Montenegro.
Montenegro.
Yes.
And you could see that post-war, The infrastructure is being rebuilt, fabulous roadways,
Oh yeah.
beautiful resorts, the coastline. It's like Italy, it's like Greece. The people are warm, friendly. The food is unbelievable. And it appears that there's tremendous opportunity today.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, the investment that's going on, especially in Albania, I can tell you is amazing. And as a culture, when you say hospitality and all that, it's ingrained in our culture. I mean, we have a sacred saying that the house belongs to God and the guest. I mean, that even that I was born here, we were raised that way. And I mean, I raise my children that way to respect and honor your guests and your
Well,
friends. So
I think that America at one time would have echoed that. And it brings us to maybe a shift in the conversation in that where do you, first generation American, how many kids do you have?
three.
Three kids. Where do you see America going from when you became aware of what America was as a
Mhm.
child and a business person and a husband and a family man and a community member to today? I want to talk about immigration today.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on should borders be open? Should they be closed? What's America do right with immigration? And what do they do wrong?
Well, that's a great question. I can tell you this, my parents came here legally. I am for immigration, legal immigration, controlled immigration, right? You can't have borderless societies. I mean, it's foolish to think that's a utopian, nonsense. Uh, but I'll tell you what, Kevin, my dad, he's so gun ho American. Growing up, again, even though I grew up with certain challenges
Sure.
as a son of immigrants and things like that, but it was great. I didn't have a want in the world. My parents worked hard. They embraced the America. They embraced the American dream. I remember when my dad got his citizenship. I think I was 16 or something at the time. He put that certificate of naturalization up on our mantle. And he was like, "Look at that! Look, this is the best country on the planet. This country gave me everything." I was kind of laughing. I'm like, "Come on, Dad," And he's like, "What do you mean, come on?" He goes, "Let me tell you something. You don't know what it's like." And he was, I mean, hardcore serious. "You don't know what it's like to have your belly hurt from hunger. You know what you got here?" He goes, "You're cold. With a press of a button, you got heat, and vice versa. Remote controls, this stuff you take for granted." He said, "Don't ever, ever think that you can have this kind of life anywhere else. This is the best and only place on the planet that's like America. It's America." And, it hit me. And then obviously, as you go through things in life and experience things working, right? Opening businesses and seeing how it all comes together, you really, really appreciate it. And I appreciate my dad. And to be honest, I see the new immigrants from all over the world reminds me of what my parents went through. I was at a Indian event the other day. And there was a lot of these Indians that were new immigrants, but I have something in common there. I see how my community was many, many years ago.
Sure.
But to fast forward to today, it's a different ballgame, man. It's scary. I'll refer back to my dad. He's a big part of my life. But when we were having the diaper shortages and baby formula shortages, my dad couldn't wrap his head around. Because America to have these I
How
mean,
could that be?
how could that be? And it's not just my dad. I mean, the vast majority of people. This is America. I mean, you remember when who was it, Gorbachev came to New York with Reagan
Oh, yeah.
and he saw the markets and he started crying and he's like, "Wow, I mean, this is America, but we're not that America anymore." And that's what's scary.
Yeah. Did the Albanian community, and I look at it, I'm a multi generational American.
Mhm.
Uh, my family were immigrants. They came from Germany. And again, achieved the American dream. We started out with a livery in a general store,
Mm.
and we serviced the farming community in Centerline, Michigan,
Wow.
southeastern Michigan, and incredible how that grew into a business empire where we employed hundreds of people in our community, and we participated with the churches and local businesses, and cousins got into politics,
Yeah,
and it just kind of took on a will of its own. I want to talk about the pride of the Albanian people and their assimilation, because I think that's important. It appears to me that your community isn't focused on making America Albania. Your community is focused on Albanians becoming Americans and contributing,
that's right.
and proud to say the Pledge of Allegiance,
Very proud.
proud to sing the national anthem. How does your community deal with um, other immigrant groups that may not appear to have those same values, that may be more interested in bringing change to America than assimilating to America in
Mm.
the values?
Well, like we were talking about the fall of communism in Albania. That last wave was during the when you mentioned the Milosevic time, when the brutal slaughter of Albanians in Kosovo, and that was that third wave
That was
in the 90s as
yeah,
well.
early 90s.
Yeah, in the late 90s too. Throughout that period. But I'll tell
I
you,
want to sound intelligent. So that was in the late 90s that Milosevic. Oh, you can cut
yeah.
that out. So
But when they were coming in, so we had what I'll call kind of the first wave of Albanians, like my dad and these guys. Then you had the second wave. There were a little bit there before the Kosovar Albanians. That's the minority that were there. But they came here and the same thing. They had the hunger, right? They came under different situation because they were being wiped out, genocide. I
yeah,
mean, it was ugly. But they came here like all of them because our people have a special affinity for America. And I don't know if you know this, Kevin, but throughout history, the American government, the American people has always been a friend to our people. I mean, it's a miracle that Albania exists as a nation with borders at all. We're an ancient people, but the Americans, even President, oh gosh, what was his name? Not Hoover. He was the dean of Harvard. Help me out here.
who was the dean of Harvard
The
and
name
became
escaped.
president?
Believe or
Wilson?
no Wilson or Princeton, one of those. Yes, President Wilson.
Okay.
So when the world powers were dividing and conquering, they were they're having their way with Albania. I mean, we're a tribal country, tribal society, but they were
Weren't we all?
right, right. But he stepped in and saved the Albanian nation. He recognized that these are an ancient people, with their own language, their own identity since time immemorial. I mean, we are descendants of the Illyrians because we always hear about the Greeks and the Romans and the Etruscans, but we are direct descendants of the Illyrians. And he recognized that, but not just him, but all the way on down. I mean, we've been protected by this great nation. And Albania values a friend, and we are loyal to the end. And that's one thing I can tell you that has never changed, and I don't think it'll ever change. But to touch on your other question, how we view other immigrant groups that aren't so quick to assimilate, it's it's one thing that some people are stuck in their old ways. And we listen. I love certain things about our traditions and customs, but how great is this country where they allow you to celebrate your heritage? They allow you to embrace where you're from and contribute. I mean, we take advantage, of all the blessings here, but we don't want to be here. We don't want to, I'm not saying we as the Albanians, but
Sure.
in general,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that curse this place, that talk smack about it. And it's a shame. And they want to highlight what's wrong with this country. I mean, last time I checked, I don't know of any place that's perfect. I mean, I think America is the closest thing. If you want to look at it that way, there's a lot of good, bad, and ugly everywhere. But, for those that come here and want to change America, I would say shame on them. And they need to step back and really look at what the situation is. Why did they come here?
Yeah. America accepts all,
It does.
and America provides such a unique opportunity. I this 2 months ago was in Africa, and I'm going to leave the country out, but 98% unemployment
Hmm.
for the country. The average income was 100 US dollars a year.
Wow.
And what does America offer? Opportunity like nowhere else. Those people are trapped. I don't think most Americans appreciate just how good we have it. And at the same time, I question whether or not these new folks coming into America understand that they need to transition and now fight for what America stands for, that opportunity, that freedom, the power that they can be themselves as an ethnic group, but they also can be American, and that America always needs to come first. For the life of me, I don't understand the conflicts or the controversy about the national anthem. I don't understand the conflicts or the controversy about saying a pledge of allegiance.
But these are divisive tools. This is, I can tell you, you ask most immigrants, they recognize it because a lot of what's going on today, and sorry to cut you off, but a
No.
lot of what's going on today is smacks of what they left in the early phases. This divide and conquer and teaching, just because you're black, you're going to get this. Just because you're Asian, you have to be left out here. These are all tools of division, and we have to rise above all of that. I've seen it. When Albania fell into communism, strikingly similar tactics. It doesn't happen overnight, but it starts gradual. And there's a lot of fear with the immigrant communities here, Kevin, where they see, whoa, what's happening here? They
Well, see,
see
as
it.
a conservative, I kind of look at it, and I hate to say this, I think it's the left that is divisive. I
Oh,
think it's the left that's constantly attacking American values, American families, the Constitution, the legal system, even within our politics. And yet, traditionally, immigrants have a tendency to favor the left, which,
yeah,
calling it out for what it
yeah,
is the Democratic Party, which is doing more and more to limit democracy.
100%.
So, what compels an immigrant to support the guys that are going to keep them repressed? They vote for them. There's generational support, and I scratch my head.
It's this. They come in, they're let's not
This,
pretend
by the way, was
money.
money.
Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
so they come in these new groups. The culture globally has shifted. That's another thing I want to say because I notice some of these groups that come in here, you know, even though they have no way of life back home, but they still have a phone, they still have money to hang out at cafes all day, but there's no ladder to climb for them unless you're getting into organized crime or a corrupt, government position in many areas of the world. But so they come here sometimes with this notion of, all right, you know, my aunt or my brother or somebody's going to take care of me. There's no gravy train. Like they think there's a gravy train, and some people may have it because they have family members here. But I think the global culture has shifted to think, okay, come into America. You don't have to do this. You go into these groups. Getting back to the money, they'll help you with, Medicaid and these government programs, and they get you on food stamps and all these things, and then they start playing word language. I've seen it happen. They A lot of people, and I know, and I don't want to, put anyone down, but they actually get confused with the term democracy and Democrat. And they lump those together and they think, well, the Democrats are for the little guy. They're not. The Democrats are the ones that are holding the little guy down.
I've mentioned that previously on the show. Again, multi-generational
Mhm.
American. In my background, I've got German, French, Irish, and I think a little bit of Jew. But I've never taken the testing that would probably add another 100 cultures to it.
Yeah.
I don't want to know, but I believe that we need an immigration policy. And currently, we take in about 1.5 to 1.7 million Americans legally a year. Me personally, I think we should up that number to closer to 2.5 million
Okay.
immigrants a year and give them a legal pathway. Um, I think that we should have a right to choose the people that we allow to immigrate to
Absolutely.
our country and see and measure how they can contribute versus becoming a ward of the country. How do you feel about an immigration policy that picks winners and losers, in essence,
I
from
mean,
different
look,
cultural groups?
let's be honest. We want the best. I live in America. I love my heritage. I love being Albanian, from that perspective. But I'm an American. I live here. I want what's best for this country, okay? So I agree with you. I support immigration, legal immigration. But I agree, we need to pick who comes here. We don't want the criminals and people with mental problems and all kind of things going there. People that don't want to work. We want the best. We want the brightest. That's how America was built.
Absolutely. And it's not being uh, incompassionate or uncompassionate. That's
Yeah,
such an excuse.
it's an excuse, but this is what the left does. They pull this narrative. You don't care. You know what? I care. I care about my country. If I have two sons, I always tell them nothing's for free. My daughter, she's 9 years old. I tell her nothing's for free. You don't get nothing unless you work for it. You earn it. Don't pretend otherwise. This notion of the left, saying, "Oh, you're prejudiced or you're racist or you're this or that." I Me personally, I won't play that game. I won't play that game. I've been through too much in my life. I've seen a lot, and I know how this country is. I know this country is a good country. It's an honorable country, but we want to hate on it every day. We want to tear it down every day. And I won't have it. I won't stand up for it. And clearly, you feel the same, Kevin. And I
Absolutely.
think we're the silent majority.
Well, I think that the silent majority needs to start to flex their muscle. Eh, I'm amazed that, how they throw around the term racism. And I think it's okay to be suspicious of a different culture.
Sure.
That's not racist. I think it's okay to be curious of a different culture. And before we go into that, I want to go back to immigration because before we started filming this show, you were telling me about a situation
Hmm.
that your wife and your daughter experienced.
Yeah.
And it's reflective of the fears that many people on the right have about immigrants and the quality of the immigrants that are coming into our country. And when I say quality, their backgrounds.
That's right.
Okay. As people, I believe that all people are quality people, but they
We're
make
all God's
choices.
children, but
Yes.
but we have free will, right? And there are good people and there are bad people. So, you know, um, it's normal. It's normal if you are not familiar with someone or their ways. This is human nature. We can't get away from it. These notions that, oh yeah, everybody's this and everybody's that, and be this today and be that tomorrow. That's garbage. Um, my wife and daughter were shopping at Target about a month ago, maybe a little more,
In Southeast Michigan,
in Auburn Hills, as a matter
in
of
Auburn
fact.
Hills,
Yeah,
Michigan.
yeah.
Okay.
And my wife was telling me, she said she noticed this guy. She called him a creeper, but he was kind of staring at her and my daughter. And then she said, she's a New Yorker, so she's like, I've seen all kinds of,
Immigrant as well.
She came here when she was 4. Yep,
She came here when she was four. From what country?
from Montenegro.
From Montenegro.
So she noticed this guy appearing, disappearing, then appearing, then disappearing again. And then she said, Nick, I didn't even turn around more than 30 seconds to grab something or look at something. And my daughter just screamed and, lunged onto her. And my wife turns around and here's this guy exposed himself to my 9-year-old daughter. Piece of garbage.
In
Okay.
Target.
In Target, in the middle of Target.
Guy's not right.
No, obviously. But then my wife, loses it. She went mama bear mode and, said a few choice words, yelled a few choice
In
words
Albanian or
in
English?
English. I mean, but she was trying to bring attention. She started chasing the guy and throwing stuff. And she said, this guy, he exposed himself to my daughter. He's a pedophile. Stop him, on and on and on. Thank God she did that because, I mean, people were kind of shocked initially because she was screaming at the top of her lungs. Thankfully, there were some young girls there working security and they were able to see him fleeing. He got in his car and took off and they got his license plate. Well, guess what? Law enforcement caught up with him at Myers, took him in. And I was floored when I found out this, Kevin. This guy was an illegal immigrant. Happens. We got a lot of them here.
Sure.
But not one time, not two times, not three times, 7 times deported from El Salvador. And he's got sexual criminal record already here. So what's that mean? It means something's wrong in our system here.
Yeah.
And it's scary because if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And let me tell you something. My wife's an immigrant. I'm a son of immigrants. I don't think that's even the topic here. It doesn't matter if you're an immigrant or not. We gotta root these people with mental problems out and get them the help they need. We gotta we gotta address these criminals. But more importantly, we gotta fix this damn immigration system. It's a problem.
Well, it's a percentage of the problem, that's for sure. And, it's interesting. I'm reaching out to a gentleman that did a presentation on immigration 28 years ago.
Hmm.
And he has updated that presentation. Tony, the producer of the show, is going to be reaching out to him. And I want to get him on because the concept of immigration and controlled immigration eliminates situations like your wife experienced.
For sure. Or drastically reduces them.
Well, I think we strive to eliminate them.
Agreed.
And it's okay to say that there's zero tolerance for people that don't deserve to come into America. Cuba, in my lifetime, after Castro opened up his prisons and his hospitals and shipped people across, it made a significant impact on South Florida. And there are a lot of great Cuban
Oh my God, they're great people.
And there are a lot of great Cuban American people. And yet there's a crime element that we allowed to come in here that has cost America dearly. It costs families, costs communities, our health systems. And at some point, you got to wonder, can America continue to absorb unlimited numbers of immigrants? And that's what we have right now. It's my understanding that this year alone, with Biden-Harris, that illegal immigrants represent more in total numbers than 33 of the 50 states in America.
Wow. That's a disaster. That's what that is.
Absolute disaster. Who pays for it?
We do.
Absolutely. Who suffers the consequences of it?
We do.
And when you take a lower common denominator, not everybody is going to see the opportunity the way your family saw the opportunity or vetted immigrants see the opportunity within America. They're forced to struggle. And that brings crime and that brings bad things when we're trying to make America better, in my view, anyway.
Well, I agree. And you want to know something that what the left loves to say is, this is not fair and that's not fair. It's not fair that our sons and daughters are victims of these crimes perpetrated by these illegal immigrants, that a lot of them are emptied out of prisons. I mean, look at the Venezuelans and all these people. Venezuela, and listen, I'm not targeting a group of people because the Venezuelan people are great people. All people are great people.
Sure.
But criminals are criminals. We don't want them here. We don't need them here. We have to have a responsible policy that vets these people and keep them the hell out of here.
Yeah, it's funny. I met a tremendous number of really nice people in Africa. 99% black.
Right.
And I don't mind saying that I wouldn't want everyone I met to come to America and be my neighbor. There was a percentage,
Of course.
and that's not racist at all. It's just simply being honest.
Of course.
And yeah, let's go into politics a little bit. Last night we had Elon Musk have a conversation with Donald Trump for 2.5 hours. And did you listen to that by chance?
I did. I was able to get in there and listen for a little while.
Yeah. What were your thoughts?
I love the conversation. I mean, I love the platform. It's having conversation like we're doing here today. Um, I loved what Elon had to say on some developing some type of government board of efficiency to root out corruption and over spending and all this. But it was good. I love the back and forth. I mean, Donald Trump is Donald Trump, and part of me, I just love that he's a matter of fact and tells it how it is, and I think that's what a lot of people yearn to hear straight talk these days. Um, but he's been through a lot, like him or not. You know, you you have to admire his will and kind of talking and touching what we talked about when people come here, the will to succeed. Well, he loves this country and he has a will to succeed. He doesn't have to do this.
A lot of people like to take shots at Donald Trump, and you make a great point in that he could live in the top 1/10 of 1% in America. Excuse me. His whole family will benefit and inherit the money that he's made. He doesn't need to expose himself or his family. And the people that question that, I don't understand. I'm okay if you say I don't like Donald Trump.
Sure.
All right, I don't like everybody, and I challenge people out there. I don't think everybody out there likes everybody either. If they do, I say bullshit.
Yeah.
There's people that you just don't like, and that doesn't mean that they don't have a place. But Donald Trump has a vision, and Donald Trump is willing to expose himself. And it's not, in my view, for position and power. It's not, in my view, for position and power. Donald Trump is consistently abrasive on issues versus what we have on the other side, which appears in this particular case to flip and flop.
Mhm.
I happen to believe there's some really good Democratic political leaders. I don't think Harris or Walz are two of them.
Agreed.
And I think that their motives are dramatically different than Donald Trump's. And
Well, you touched on the fact that a lot of people might not like Donald Trump. From a business perspective, Kevin, I might not like you, for example, but I have a business and I know what value and how important that you could be to my mission
mhm.
in my business. Guess what? I don't care that you're abrasive. I don't care about certain things. Can we deliver results? I mean, I think we get caught up in this cult of personality a lot. Um,
The press doesn't do that to us, do they?
but it's one of those things. Who's right for the job? Who's right for the job? In this case, I mean, I struggle with, and I have friends on the other side that they're supporting the Harris Walz ticket because they're Dems, but I try to challenge them. Why? What have they done? Where do they stand? If you really look where they stand and what they've done, it's a scary choice. And I think you got to give the nod to President Trump because at least he might be abrasive, but he's going to deliver results and he will make America great again.
I think that it's interesting because Harris yesterday swiped one of Trump's uh, political positions with no tax on tips.
Yeah.
And I think she did that because she saw that it made sense. Now, here's the funny thing about it, she was the deciding vote that cracked down on these very same people
Yeah.
that's making them pay higher taxes. And this flip flop can only be for position and power. And, uh, again, uh, we, it's tough to be a leader. It's tough to make decisions that can impact people's lives. And it is tough to make 100% decision for everybody. But you hear people go after Trump and say, oh, he's anti LGBTQ. Actually, I don't think he cares because if you look at his administration, there were several members of the LGBTQ community
That's right.
that participated at very, very high levels and people that I know and respect. Now, granted, they weren't acting like cats and asking for a litter box. And the left likes to say that Trump's weird. Well, I think supporting people that need to pee in a litter box is weird.
Yeah.
I think supporting people that need to have parades that are sexually explicit, trying to justify their existence, is weird. And I'm not against the people, I'm against the parade and their display, thinking that if we rub it in your face, that that will make us more acceptable. In my businesses, I had several executives in my companies that lived what I'm going to refer to as a non-traditional lifestyle.
Right.
So what? They were great people. They worked hard. And I think that's how Republicans in general,
But you don't care what they did behind closed doors.
I don't want to see it,
I don't want
but
to
I
see.
don't care.
I had management that were gay, and they were like family in many ways to us.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, it's not for me to judge. That's how I look at that. But when you again, when you take a situation like that, or you take race, or you take religion, and use that as a tool, like I was saying earlier, to be divisive and ram things down people's, that's not who we are as Americans. We are
No,
live and let live. But now you're trying to jam and turn us against each other. It doesn't work. And people are waking up to that more and more, Kevin.
when I ran for governor, I was given a speech um, at a high school, and there was a group of kids that showed up that weren't your average kids. Um, they were trying to express themselves differently than maybe how my kids uh, or how I wanted my kids to express themselves. Not right or wrong, but different.
Sure.
They were attracting attention to themselves by what they said and how they said it and how they looked. And it was interesting because the conversation got into um, there were two young ladies that were sisters, and both were gay. And they expressed that they wanted all of the kids in the school to go to gay sensitivity training so they could be accepted. And they had a list of demands that if I were elected governor, would I implement those demands? And I said, well, I hear your list. And I said, just out of curiosity, if we took heterosexual kids at the school, would you be willing to go through the reverse class
Excellent.
on accepting heterosexuals and try and figure out a way to get along
And coexist.
and coexist
Yeah.
because that's important. And I digress because on that topic, and this is going to be controversial as hell, I looked at these girls and I said, if you were my children, I wouldn't love you less because you were gay. I wouldn't. But I'm going to admit to you that when your mother and I were fooling around, I wasn't hoping that I had gay kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have you ever, because they had talked to me about their parents
Mm,
and the struggles that they had with their parents and how their parents didn't understand. And I
yeah.
said, I can believe that. It's got to be tough.
Of course.
And parents have expectations, parents have desires, the beauty of bringing a child into a family
It's a blessing. I
and
mean,
the blessing
right.
of life, and then to have that child take a different route. And in this case, they were gay.
Hmm.
It's no different than if that child turned into a drug dealer. I understand why parents show up at a prison
Hmm.
and visit their child who's a drug dealer or a murderer.
Hmm.
I get it because you still love your child, but it's foolish to say that the understanding can only be on one side.
It's very foolish. Um, I would agree with that because I don't know any parents that start off saying, I want my child to be gay. I want my child to be a furry. I want my child to be this, to be that. Uh, Everybody comes from a different background. I can speak for myself as a Catholic, uh, as an Albanian American. When I got married, I got married to have a family.
Mhm,
I hoped to have children. God blessed me with three beautiful, healthy children. I'm hoping that they also will follow the path of God because in my religion, it's man and woman.
mhm.
And, you know, we are attacked daily on that front as in the society, which is crazy to me. But I would hope my sons and my daughter follow the path that I did with my wife and my parents and my parents' parents and on and on and on. I mean, this is life. But if that was the situation and one of them turned out to be different, guess what? I agree with you. I cannot love them any less. They're my children.
Yeah,
Would I be disappointed? Try to understand. It's hard, I'm sure. I don't know what that's like. I have friends that are gay. I had coworkers. I've heard their stories, and it's not easy. And many of them, a lot of them said, "I didn't want this. This is who I am,"
sure.
and I'm okay with that. But now I feel that this has morphed into something else. With the LGBT and on this the alphabet
It's
soup.
another
That's
tool it seems to
but that's
divide.
exactly what it is. So they're taking these people that are going through these changes in their life or that are born a certain way and utilizing for a purpose. But guess what? We have gay people and different people within the Trump administration, right? Getting back to they get it. They accept who they are, but they're not tearing down society. They're not looking to impose, you know, their their will or their philosophy on 300 plus million people.
Yeah.
They want to be a part of the culture and part of the solution.
I don't understand. And again, maybe it's just me. And we'll move off this topic, but it's interesting because it's always Republicans aren't willing to accept.
Of course.
I disagree. It's no different than assimilation. You can be who you are, but assimilate a certain set of core values, a certain set of standards. Um, that's okay. That moves society forward. And if you want to participate in society, it's not repression to say that you have to do what society mandates. And that structure is
Hmm.
part of what makes America strong. And we need to maintain that structure because other countries who are much more restrictive than America, China, Russia, want to replace America in the role that America plays in the world for some of these fringe groups, for some of these people who think that structurally they should change society to fit to their, sexual orientation is naive at best. Whether they like it or not, in most of the world, if you are LGBTQ, you've got a pretty damn good chance of having your head chopped off
Oh,
or
for
being
sure.
stoned publicly. And the ability to express that to the masses within those communities does not exist. They're accepted, but they keep quiet about it and it's private. And I think that that's dignity. And I think that that's respect for others. Um, be who you want to be, but don't rub it in my face. I don't like it when a heterosexual couple, it's
Yeah.
like get a room.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're smooching, and I don't want to see it from a gay couple.
I agree. I
Not
agree.
interested.
I mean, and I think even crossing over that's launched into this policy that we see, this notion of DEI. I don't get it because I feel, and this may be controversial, but I feel that in itself is racist
Of course it is.
because we have laws. I mean, all the movements, the civil rights movement, all the movements that made us who we are today guarantees us certain rights, right? You and I can't hire somebody tomorrow based on their color or orientation, sexual orientation, or their religion, and on and on. It's foolish. And thank God those laws are in the books. But now what they've done is another alphabet soup program where we're going to give you this job because you're Albanian. You check this box, and we're going to feel good about it. And then we're going to fill this job because you're X, Y, and Z. This is striking at the fabric of our society, and this is undermining what undergirds our society is that rule of law and these things that were introduced to protect minorities.
Yeah.
But what are we doing now? You see, it's a farce. It's crazy.
I've never been smart enough to figure out terms or words to express a view. I'm kind of a traditional type of guy, and you know, DEI. Are you kidding me? Um, LGBTQ. Just be gay,
Sure.
and it's okay. I, DEI, how about we hire the best of the best? How about private businesses have the right to hire people who are qualified? How about we educate to create curiosity and we educate to create intellect?
How about meritocracy?
Absolutely.
You know, it's it's unfortunate. And so many of the corporations and everybody have fallen victim out of fear.
Yeah. I don't know where it takes us other than down.
Oh, it's taken us down big time.
And it's a situation. I was thinking the other day about gun control. Uh, just to describe a scenario,
Okay.
and I'm going to blame the legal system, but I think it comes from the left. All right, because I think that if you commit a crime, that you should be punished. Now, I'm not like some
Oh
countries
my
where if you
God,
steal
really?
something, where they cut your hand off.
Yeah.
I'm not
You're not that drastic.
that drastic. I'd like to think in some instances close. And there has to be consequences for crimes. So think about in California that as long as you steal less than $1,000 worth of goods, it's not considered a crime. And doesn't that diminish stealing? In Michigan, as long as you steal less than one car per year and get caught, it doesn't show up on your record. It's something called diversion.
Oh my God.
And so that diminishes crime. And the excuse is, well, there's so many people doing it that we don't have the resources to punish them. And I'm okay. Like when I was growing up, when I did something wrong, I got punished.
Hmm.
And it might be grounded, it might be paddled on the butt. And I'm sure I deserved both when I did it. And I knew that I had crossed a line, and I made the decision personally whether or not I wanted to cross that line again.
Right.
And interestingly enough, the consequences of crossing the line a second time usually amp themselves up a little bit.
Yeah.
So in today's world, our legal system says, you can commit a crime, but we're not going to have any consequences. The consequences, we're going to put a tether on you. Or the consequences is we're going to threaten you that if you do this multiple more times, that we'll figure out some way to punish you. And here's where I go old school as a conservative. I think criminals should really have it rough. And I challenge people, you really want to get pissed. Look at how much Michigan pays per year to criminals based on lawsuits that they file while they are in prison because they don't like the food, they don't like the guard treatment, they don't like the number of TV channels that are available to them, and it's all under similar DEI. It's, well, these channels don't represent me. This food doesn't represent me, and it's all about society catering to the individual whims of those people who disrespect society by creating a crime. I think that we need to go back to severe consequences for criminality, despite it overflowing. And severe consequences, that includes like hard labor. We look for laborers. Hell, I'm okay with the chain gang.
Yeah.
If you did enough to get yourself to where you're a candidate for the chain gang, too freaking bad.
Yeah.
Go suffer.
Yeah.
And no, you don't get to vote when you're a criminal. For God's sakes, who do you think you're going to vote for? The people who don't want to punish criminals.
Exactly. Well, this is why it's sad. It's really what it is, because all these points that you're touching, this is common sense.
And it's not so common anymore.
It's not. But we're brainwashing a new generation of Americans to think that it's okay to be entitled. It's okay to be a victim. It's okay to play the system. I mean, it's got to stop.
It's got to stop. You, on that note, a businessman who's created a great life for himself, strong family, you're active in your community, have decided to become engaged in politics. And I give you credit. You've stepped up to run for the Oakland County position as a Republican. And talk to me, if you would, a little bit about the issues you see in Oakland County and the common sense that you would bring under your leadership.
Well, I'm running for Oakland County Executive because everything we discussed today kind of led me to this point in my life where a lot of things don't make sense. The taxes are crazy. The crime is crazy. Our kids are going elsewhere. Oakland County, and Kevin, you're a lifelong Michigander. Oakland County was the pinnacle. It was the top of the top growing up. I grew up, born in Detroit, grew up on the east side, but everybody wanted to go to Oakland County. But over the years, after Brooks passed away and my opponent was appointed, he implemented the mantra of tax and spend. And I can tell you, from 700 and some odd $1 million, the new budgets ballooned to over $1 billion. Soft on crime, doesn't support the Oakland County sheriffs like he should. There's a lot of managed decline, is what I call it, to be honest with you.
So how do you approach it?
As a business, because it's a business. This guy, Dave Coulter's never run a business. He wouldn't know. So in that regard, I don't blame him, because you don't know what you don't know. But you're spending money. You're not, you have these feel good programs, but what are they doing for the county?
Have you identified, Nick, specific issues that you're running on?
Well, I'm running on taxes, and I'm all about bold leadership, because sometimes you got to jump in and do have the will and do something bold. So we are going to propose a 25% property tax cut and a 25% reduction in spending right off the bat, along other things. We're gonna look at every which way to bring business back in Oakland County. Focus on some education to see what we can do in supporting policies that help the citizens and students of Oakland County.
Yeah,
Across the
literacy
board.
is a huge thing for
It's a
me. And
huge thing.
Oakland County is one of the wealthiest counties in America. And interestingly enough, their high school graduation literacy rate hovers at 50% when they graduate these kids. 50% in one of the wealthiest counties in America. That is completely unacceptable. Kids
Completely.
can learn how to read. And to be successful in America, you got to understand and be able to read.
But that's why I feel like across the country, the state, local, they've all fallen to this, wokeism, these bullcrap agendas that who's paying the price? Our kids.
Yeah.
Why do you think a lot of the kids are leaving Oakland County? They're going elsewhere because they see opportunity elsewhere. Oakland County, I mean, when you had Medical Main Street and you had all these corporations, I can
Automation Alley.
Automation Alley. I mean, I can tell you so many people that I've spoken to that are pretty high up in the business world. They would love, first of all, they're scared of Michigan, but if they entertain Michigan, they don't want to come to Oakland County. They see
Yeah.
what time it is. And, we also want to look at the crime. I mean, the crime is a real thing. It's increased in Oakland County. And, these guys are playing games with the budget that, they should be supporting law and order. They won't come out and tell you they're about defund the police, but, you know,
In essence, they're
in essence,
strangling.
they're strangling or,
Yeah.
or ignoring, or, I mean, it's embarrassing. Oakland County to have two helicopters, one's in disrepair, and where's the money for it? I mean, I would be all in saying, what is it that you need? I mean, they're doing this transit tax that raking in $66 million. How about, and that passed. It was on the ballot, so it is what it is. But what are you really doing with that $66 million? How come you're not allocating funds to Sheriff Bouchard and what he's doing? Because he's got a real tough job, you know. And he's been a great sheriff for this county, but just the way that the world's been changing, the country's been changing, the state's been changing, his job has gotten tougher. So
Yeah.
you don't strangle, you don't ignore his requests for support financially. You bolster them. And matter of fact, there was a lot of talk about putting a
Hold
new
them
center.
accountable, by the way.
Well, no doubt, no doubt.
Absolutely. I don't think Mike Bouchard doesn't want scrutiny. He needs those funds to deliver what the people of Oakland County demand, and he welcomes the scrutiny.
No doubt about it. But how in business, if you don't give me what I need, I'm one of your managers or I'm running a production line. If I don't have the tools I need, how can I deliver the results that are expected of me?
Yeah.
You tell me. So these are common sense things, and we want to bring common sense back to Oakland County. But at the same time, we have to give our people relief. I would love to see, what my opponent and these guys think about giving people relief. But I'm going to tell you something. What's scary is the road commission of Oakland County. Their funding is going to run out in 25. What's Dave Coulter going to do? All these guys know how to do is spend, spend, spend. How about finding real solutions?
Well, that's how government grows itself.
Of course.
They make commitments to their citizens. They get federal subsidies or state subsidies that come into the county, but they know that it doesn't complete the job. And then they go back to the people in their locales and say, we need more money because we can't complete what we started.
But that's why this guy is not for the job. He's not a businessman. He does not understand. He's worried about DEI, right? Why don't you put together the best and the brightest team that's going to serve the citizens of Oakland County in every facet, serve the businesses of Oakland County? You know what he's doing with businesses, Kevin? I have a fundraiser in Royal Oak. This gentleman, it was a Wednesday. It looks like, he said, I didn't have much going on. He accommodated us. Apparently, it's one of Dave Coulter's favorite restaurants. And he took it upon himself to message the restaurant owner telling him, you're one of my favorite restaurants, but I guess I won't be coming back anymore. Playing games with business owners, that's a disgrace, and he should be ashamed of himself.
Yeah, leaders need to lead. That's for certain. Um, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, Michigan in America. What do you see as the differences that people should consider?
Oh my God. I mean, the differences are stark. You know,
Can you be specific?
yeah,
I'm putting you on
yeah.
the
No, no.
hot
I
seat.
mean, law and order versus calamity, safety and security versus criminality, rampant, and prosperity versus going down the tubes.
Yeah,
I mean, really, that's what it boils down to. I mean, if you want to look at the respect on a global scale, I mean, we've lost a lot of respect. I mean, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, that whole team there. I mean, that's not what America's about. America first is the key. America needs to lead the world. Without America being number one in its leadership, the world is a more dangerous place. It's a weaker place. And you know what? When America suffers, even financially, the world suffers financially.
no
No
question.
other country is going to step up and do what America does. And I'll be honest, the sheer will that Donald Trump has. I'll be honest, it's inspired me. I said, you know what? Enough of me talking trash and complaining on the sidelines. Nobody else was stepping up. And I said, I want to do this. I want to take this on and do what I can for Oakland County. I'm not looking to make this a career. I want to come deliver some bold results and then go back to the private sector because that's what it was here. But we have career politicians.
Yeah, career politicians are they're really good at one thing: taking. They
Yeah,
don't make anything;
yeah,
they take.
yeah.
And the only tool that they have is control. It's so interesting to me. I'm going to go back. I mentioned a while back about the Second Amendment, and I love to ask people who think that guns should be taken away from U.S. citizens. Um, how many law-abiding citizens commit crimes?
Very few.
Well, you can't if you're law-abiding.
True.
And if you're not going to prosecute the people for committing crimes, but you pass laws, and the people who are inclined to follow those laws are the ones that continue to suffer, your rights continue to go further and further and further into the crapper.
Yeah.
And England, we emanated 250 years ago or 300 years ago from England, right?
Right.
I am amazed that recently there have been pushback, Muslim riots, and English non-Muslim people have had riots and clashes, and it saddens me. I don't live in England. I don't profess to understand all of it, but what saddens me is that England now, instead of going after the rioters and them having consequences, they're punishing people who are texting mean messages or taking pictures of the riots and calling that anti-English and
Hmm.
anti-societal versus going after the people that are stabbing people and killing people. And it's just a funny time in
Well,
our world.
well, that's America in 10 years, Kevin.
I hope not.
You know,
People like you and people like me are going to fight
that's for sure.
uh, to coin a phrase. We're going to fight like hell,
That's right.
or fight. Nik, we've been chatting for a bit, and I hope you consider coming back
I'd love to. Thank you for
Beyond
having
the
me.
Echo. It's just nice to get to know you. And these types of conversations, I think people in Michigan want to have. I think people want to understand more. And I thank you for being
No,
here.
thank you, and it means a lot because, as you well know, it's hard to get everywhere and talk to everyone, right? But I appreciate you having me on the show, and it's been a great conversation, and looking forward to doing it again.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Echo. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop us a comment and share the podcast with your friends. Stay connected and keep the conversation going by following us on social media. Until next time, keep exploring beyond the echo.